So his ground is on, off, on, off, on, off, on.
And then that still doesn't solve our problem because the player can still keep jumping. So we need to.
Alrighty, everybody. Go ahead and obtain today. What up, Notary? What up, PMR? Go ahead and start this stream. Let's check on that. With audio being captured. And yeah, hope and pray it works.
All right, welcome to the Game Design with Dr. Gabe stream. We are jumping back into our Unity project this week. Last week we took a little break. For those of you who tuned in, we did a little design challenge where we created Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt, as a League of Legends champion, and we also did a little prototype of a weapon system. So I had a challenge for myself to design a game with a weapon system that varied in only 5 different ways. And so we created that and created a little paper prototype in Miro. That exercise highlighted why it is really important for designers such as myself to get more familiar with actually building stuff in game engines, because while I was prototyping that, and I think it might behoove us to pull that up real quick. So let's go ahead and do that. Jumping over to Miro, my favorite little infinite whiteboard. And you can see on the screen here is a little paper prototype. I used a bunch of Zelda sprites. And prototype this little weapon system. But what I found when I was trying to sort of simulate this and see whether or not I had created a game that was any fun, I'm sitting here trying to basically simulate what would be happening in real time in this very action-packed scene. So I was kind of imagining these different characters coming in and out, trying to imagine things like damage over time for fire effects. I started doing things like casting lines. Let's make that a little bigger to simulate what an arrow might be, and trying to shoot arrows and trying to keep all track of that in real time to see whether or not they could get out of the way or take damage. And when you had several of these happening and the different arrows, different projectiles following along those paths, it got very cumbersome very quickly. So wouldn't it have been cooler and better if I could have just popped into Unity really quick and prototype some basic character AI, some basic enemy AIs, had those projectiles being shot. And it's not like I needed to program everything that would happen in an entire game, but I could definitely get a higher fidelity simulation of if my weapon system was fun compared to my little paper prototype. So that's why we do these sometimes painful slogs through Unity tutorials and stuff like that. If you're working on a big team, chances are you're working with a developer who's going to do this stuff a lot faster and better than you can. But, for making a quick and dirty prototype, having some knowledge of how to do this is beneficial. So that's why we're continuing with our 2D platformer today. And just checking with the chat real quick here. KMR, no problem. You missed a good one. It was more fun than these because we actually did more design and less development. But all of the video is up on YouTube if you want to check it out. And Connery says, poofed. I hope you're okay. Don't know what that means. But here we go. Let's do a little review of where we left off last time. And it's really good that I kept this log because when you haven't looked at a project for 2 weeks because you've been working on other stuff, it's really easy to figure out where you left off. But you can see we started by building a scene, getting 2D physics and colliders in place with rigid bodies and box colliders, and then we got a moving character sprite. We figured out how to get play with the preset inputs that were in Unity. We enable an extension in Visual Studio, so that's the where you do the coding side of this. That helps autocomplete and sort of spell check your Unity code, which is great. We got a player moving and jumping. We created a simple camera follow and death system, so we used the late update function in Unity to have the camera follow the position of the player and put some bounds around that so it could move too far left or too far right if the player got to the edge of the screen. And we created a death system. And so if Mario falls below a certain point, he's going to die, and it just resets the game. There are still some issues with our code. Can jump infinitely. Actually, I don't think that's true anymore. We fixed that. There is still a little bit of jank. I should actually do it this way. Fixed. Infinite jumping, but can still jump if touching a wall. So the issue there is that we created a little grounded condition which says that if Mario or Simba, in our case, is touching a collider that's associated with the floor basically the floor, it toggles something that says that he is grounded and therefore can jump. And if he's in the air, he's not touching anything, so he's not grounded anymore, so he can't jump. But what happens is if you jump and you jump into a wall, it's still going to detect a collision. It's still going to say he's grounded. It's still going to let you jump. So we're going to need to fix that at some point. We then got some enemies on screen and we got them moving. And that is where we left off. So if we want to take a look here, all of this functionality now exists. We've got different enemies. I don't like how they float through space right now. They're probably all going to get janked up on each other. But all of this is, progress from the last time that we played on this. There's the death mechanic coming in. Oop. You can see we have a following camera. And if I can make it all the way to the other edge of the screen, which I think I can, you'll see the camera doesn't go beyond here because we fixed the bounce of the camera that way. I can't double jump unless I'm touching a collider, in which I definitely can. So we need to fix that. All right, so let's jump into the next part of this tutorial.
It follows the character and it stops at certain spots where we choose. But first of all, I want to look at tidying up the project a little bit. So our character can jump, and then he can continuously jump. So that's something that we want to fix. And we also want to fix the dying coroutine just to make it work properly. And we also, I think in this episode, it'll be a good idea to just get some very basic enemy AI. Turn this into a void. We'll just get rid of it. So right now, like obviously, like I said before, the player can just continually jump. We can say if col.gameObject.tag public, we can click on the player and we can see that he has an is grounded. Awesome. Void jump gets called. Now I wanted to move on to actually creating an enemy. So then we want an enemy, to move back and forth between these two things. Enemy speed. This is all just prototyping, remember, guys. So dot velocity equals a new vector2.
Maybe I'm further along than I remember. Let me pull up our script for enemy movement. So just to review this real quick, we have an enemy movement script. So it's something we're going to assign to the enemy game object. So we have our little Goombas. And interesting. Okay, so we gave some public variables. So enemy speed, move direction, and ray cast distance. So if we want to take a look at what that looks like really quickly, if you look in the scene view, it looks like I turned that off. What's that in the editor? Make Goombas. Use LMS, freeze rotation, ray cast distance. I guess I must have commented that out, so let's put that back in. Yeah. So what this debug.drawRay line will do is it will actually let us visually see the ray cast from the enemy that it's using to check if it's colliding with something. So if we look back to our tutorial, and I hit play, why didn't I do it? There it is. All right, so you'll see that my Goombas look like they have little jousting sticks. Well, they're not jousting sticks. They are the ray casts that are being used to detect if they're colliding with something. And what our script is telling them to do is, if they collide with something, to turn around and go the opposite direction. Now, I am not sure yet why they get stuck like this. I hope that this happens in the tutorial that he's showing so that we can fix it. But you can see, at least with this front one, as soon as he boops the wall, it tells him to turn around. Should happen here as well with the lead one, boop, boop. And so array is basically just mathematically a line that's being sent out. And we have ray cast distance of 0.55. That's how far it casts out. And it looks and it says, okay, if you touch a collider, turn around. So it should be turning around as soon as the tip of that line touches the box collider. So the green box here around the surface. Another thing to note, though, is he, in our tutorial, had us put this line for, let's see where it is. Unless, no, actually, I think it's a property of the, Well, what he did have us do was to, here we go. We set enemy game object to ignore the ray cast layer, so the ray can cast from the center of the enemy and doesn't hit its own box collider. That's a really good question, KMR. I'll explain that in just a moment. So the first question I wanted to answer was regarding. So again, if we look at our scene, we'll see that these. Oh, that's why they're probably getting stuck on each other, or maybe I hope so. Um, so right now, the ray is being cast from the center of the enemy, but the enemy also has its own collider, right? This green box is a collider. And therefore, if we didn't have it do the ignore its own collider sort of function, which I'm trying to remember exactly where that is, the ray would be bouncing off of its own inner barrier and probably just freak it out and make it sort of just twitch in space. Is that? Let's see. I have it in my notes. We set enemy game object to ignore the ray cast layer. Oh, I think I know what that is. It's up at the top. Yep. Okay. So yeah, if you look at the very top in the right hand corner here, ignore ray cast makes it so that that's probably exactly what it is. I'll bet the others don't bounce off each other because they're probably ignoring. No. They're ignoring each other's ray casts. So they're not bouncing off of each other like they're supposed to. I'm going to experiment with that. Let's get rid of you, and you. Set you over here, set you here. And I want you moving right. So I'm going to set move direction X and set you moving left. So if my hypothesis is correct, they will not bounce off of each other. Yeah, that's really stupid. Okay. All right, so we'll see if the tutorial fixes this sooner rather than later, because that's obviously not a good design. Okay, so KMR asks, looks like randomness in the physics engine. How does one exert complete control when using the engine for randomness? Did you change the prefab? 1 second, my alarm is going off. Let me fix that. Okay, so to the question KMR asked about the randomness. Yeah, I had a frustration with this. Two different questions. Okay, well, I'll have you clarify the second question. I'm hearing the first question as, how do you exert complete control when using the engine for randomness when it comes to the physics? And the issue is that I actually would not do this the same way again. Basically as a result of exactly what you're saying. Because what this is doing, and I'll give you another example of it to demonstrate it. Let's actually undo something that I did. So this enemy, I'm going to go up to the top, and I currently have overrides. No. It's probably under rigid. Okay. You'll notice for the Goomba that I currently have highlighted that I have freeze rotation set to Z checked. Watch what happens if I uncheck that. Oh, gotta turn it around. 1 second. All right, see how he twirls? He rolls. Right? So I decided to freeze that rotation so that wouldn't happen with the other Goombas. But yeah, what's happening here is basically Unity has an entire system of physics in this rigid body 2D that is operating on anything that's been given a rigid body collider, or sorry, I might be saying that wrong. But anyone who's been given rigid body as a part of the game object is having those things applied to them. In fact, I think it might be funny to try this. If I go to this this ground element and I add rigid body and I hit play, it's probably going to fall, right? See that? So anything that I add rigid body 2D to is going to have a base set. Oh, look at that. Look at how it tips and oh, that's fun. It's going to apply weight and gravity and all of these different types of variables to it. So for a game like Mario made on the ancient NES, they were not leveraging a physics system like this. And we shouldn't be, frankly. This is if I were to do this again from the beginning, I would not do that. Oops. Remove component. So what that would look like is, and I'm too scared to try and code this on the fly, but it sounds like something that I would need to do eventually, is I would need to make an enemy script that is not dependent on physics, and I would need to say something to the effect of when enemy isn't grounded, set its transform its position to subtract Y position over time until it's grounded again, and just make it entirely hard coded based on time and status and context instead of just leveraging Unity's 2D engine. So it's cool that we have this because we can prototype things so quickly compared to having to hard code all that stuff. But yeah, back in the old days of the Nintendo and stuff, yeah, they absolutely were not simulating physics that way at all. It was not like they had gravity, or maybe they did, but they definitely were just saying when a player puts the input of this, hard code change the physics of the object to this instead of starting with this big thing that applies this stuff automatically. Yeah, just to show again what that kind of looks like. We've got, this twirling effect happening that we don't like. I don't like, for instance, that if I jump on the Goomba, you'll see it kind of depress. All of that is automatic physics being applied that have not been hard coded. So a Goomba in the old days would definitely not do any of that stuff. So we'll see as this tutorial progresses how they fix for that. I especially don't like that this ignore raycast solution that they gave us makes it so the Goombas don't bounce off of each other, because that's certainly not going to work for me. So yeah, let's continue with... actually, you said you had a second question. I don't think I heard the second question, KMR. For those watching on the streams, if you want to get into a chat that I'm actually looking at, we are in Discord at discord.gg/Amaru, AMARU. That's where we're hanging out. Oh, I should probably check the YouTube to make sure that it's not being spammed by porn bots, as tends to happen. That it's not being spammed. Good. There are no porn bots spawning our YouTube or spamming our YouTube. All right, KMR. I wondered if you changed the prefab of the enemy for... Yes. So what KMR is asking here is, with each of these enemies that I currently have in the scene, there is what's called a prefab. And a prefab is basically allows me to just drag up, make it out of play mode. I can make it rain enemies all day long by having this prefab. And what that means is that I have a pre-saved game object that has such things as this color, right? I've added this color. I've added this image, the Tile 56 image. I've set its move direction. I've set its enemy speed. I've set its raycast distance. I've freezed its rotation. I have the raycast set to ignore raycast. All of that stuff is saved in this object. So if I were to go to any of these ones on screen and individually change it in some way, like let's say I want to lighten its color or something. that will only change that one creature. And I actually don't know. I don't think that this works. If I change it here, yeah, it did it. Look at that. Yeah. All right. So when I change it on the game object prefab layer, that means that any of the objects that I used of that prefab, I could change them all at once, right? All right. So I'm wondering if you change the prefab, and what if the enemy did not ignore its raycast? Against these questions for those of you who are maybe watching on Twitch and like, what is he talking to? This is in our Discord, amaru.gg/amaru. Excuse me, discord.gg/amaru. So, what would happen if we turned off the raycast ignoring? What would happen is scene view. Okay. See how he's got his little jousting stick that's going out to the left? Well, notice he's also got this green box collider. So what would happen is the ray would start in the center of his game object. It would move to the right, hit his own box collider, and tell him to turn around. So that's why we turned the ignore raycast in the first place, was to prevent that from happening and make it so he only turned around when he bumped into something. But the problem is that that solution is not working when he bumps into other Goombas. It works when he bumps into a wall, but not into other Goombas. So I'm guessing that the guy for the tutorial is going to like discover that the solution doesn't work pretty fast and then tell us a better way of doing it. But this is where we are at the moment. So let's continue. I hope that answers your question. And I'm going to reset my Goombas back to being the color I want them to be. Alright, and I also want Simba to come. I created this sort of little playground at the end of the session last time just to kind of mess around with stuff. But let's move Simba back to the start of the level. Let's just play it one time. Oh, I've already created an impassable solution. Wait, maybe I can jump off. Maybe I can jump. Wait, I didn't die. Oh, you know why? there was something down here that saved me. I fell onto an invisible salvation platform. That's not going to work though. Let's get that out of there. Get that out of there. And this wall. Let's do. Scale. No, not that way. All right. Ooh, can I jump on this guy in midair? Pro stat. Can't do that. Oh, the one special Goomba who can rotate on his Z and his yellow. All right, there's nothing else for it, y'all. We did it. We tested the death condition. All right, so that is what we have so far. Let's get rid of some of these sailing incoming Goombas of death. Let's actually get rid of our special boy here. Let's make you go to the right. You go to the right. And give it one more run just to make sure we don't break anything. And then we'll pick up where we left off with the tutorial. Does he bounce off me? He doesn't? Interesting. Why does he bounce off Simba? Oh, because Simba is not ignoring raycast? Gosh, I don't know. That's so weird. Yay! All right. Onward.
Like we were just talking about, to be able to, let's just drag him down. We want him to be able to bang into these guys, or at least get close to these guys, and then turn around and go the other way. So to do that, we can use a raycast. Because obviously our characters might be different sizes.
Huh. Maybe I was on the
Next
next
move direction equal test run.
Yeah, I was.
And
There we
change
go.
this because we don't need that.
All right, so we got that. We got that enemy moving, and let's see what are we doing these days. What are we doing now?
Needs to be a collider 2D. I'm going to call it trig. And we're going to say...
All right, so we're actually creating a scoring system in the game now. Let me make a note of that. Scripts. Uh, 11.15 2022. Holy crap, y'all. It's November 15th, 2022. Hope you voted. Alright, so, alright, 11/15/2022. Discovered a question. Why does the Goomba bounce off Simba? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Or maybe more generally, how does ignore raycast work? Goombas bounce off each other, or off walls, and Simba, but not each other. Alright. We are now working on a scoring system. So in Mario, y'all may remember if you ever played it. If you haven't played it, like, what are you doing with your life? Go play the original Mario. It's classic, stands up. Mario has score that gets applied when you, say, jump on an enemy, when you get to the end of the level, and also has a time system in the game. So completing a level faster gets you more points. It's really not something that I've ever noticed people pay much attention to. Generally speaking, Mario is about, like, can you actually get to the end? But in the meantime, if you really care, you could try to get a high score while you do it. So that's what we'll be doing this time. So in the script that our lovely tutorial leader is taking us through, we have programmed something that is looking at how much time is left. Do I have that? This is called playerscore.cs. So let's see how far we got. There we are. So yep, it looks like we've set a timer of 120 and a player score. These are both public, so I can change these values in the editor. Interval in seconds from the last frame to the current one. So time left means that every frame, so again, we're doing this in the update function, so every frame it updates, we're taking time off of the time remaining, and if time left is less than 0.1 f, we use f because it's a float, we do essentially our death function. So instead of calling a function called die, we're just loading the scene from the beginning. So it's very janky, but it's just going to hard reset the scene if our time falls below 0.1. And void on trigger enter 2D, collider 2D trig, debug touched the end. So, oh, I see. What this was is us setting basically a goalpost at the end of the level. So we have a debug log that says if we touch that post, we're going to trigger the end of the level, which would be our win condition. So let's, I'm going to make a few notes of that so I don't forget. Created time system tied out of time condition to death. Reload scene. Created a endpoint in the level. With a debug if we touch it. Okay, so did I actually do that? Let's see. Let's go back to our scene. And aha, there it is. There we are. So let's see if it actually does that touch the end thing. I don't know if we've actually rigged that up the way we're supposed to. I'm going to try and actually play my game. I, for the record, really hate using keyboards for platformer games. I've just always been a gamepad person. So this is a bit of a struggle bus for me. So gross, these colliders. Alright. Bing. I didn't maybe touch the end. There it is, right there. Bottom left, you can see that there is a debug message that appeared because I touched the end. And every time I interact with the collider of this object, I'm getting this touch the end. So, good. Let's see. I want to see, how did we make this special somehow? We didn't put a special tag on it. East end is what I called it. How do I know that it's that and not any collider? So the question I'm asking is, all right, so I was able to touch that, and it triggered, a debug saying end the game, but I don't understand what it is about that east end object that's special that makes it do that. So because I'm touching lots of colliders, but it's not saying touch the end unless it's that very special one. So what is this? Void on trigger enter 2D, collider 2D, trig, debug log touch the end. On trigger 2D is called when the collider 2D enters the trigger 2D, parent class for collider, and trig. I think we might be literally in the middle of this, but we're not, because it works already. Let's take a look at this game object. What have we got here? Okay. So the reason it's applying to, nope, I lied. Player score is assigned to the Simba game object, not the East End game object. Why are you special, East End object? You don't have a special tag. All right, well, I'm going to back up a little bit and try and figure out why that is, because it makes me curious.
We're just going to say debug.log. Let's remember, and then we can go back into our script and we can handle a rigid body 2D and we're going to set the rigid body to static, which means it stays in one space. And we're going to adjust. You can see the box collider there. We're going to adjust the size to be about that big.
Alright, I think I might have figured it out. If I go to, like, these are kind of important things that it'd be nice if he was explaining. Alright, the reason why this is special and this is not, such that when Simba touches East End, it triggers this, and when he touches the normal ground, it does not, is because this function on trigger 2D is looking for something specifically that has 2D rigid body on it. So if you look at my game objects for the ground, they have colliders, but they don't have 2D physics applied to them. But if you look at my East End, it does. So, but the other issue of that is, well, wait, why is it that physics is being applied to it? Why doesn't it fall down? Why doesn't Simba bump into it? That is because we have set it to static rather than dynamic or kinematic. So it doesn't move at all. Why, I wonder... Okay, we've set it to is trigger, so that's important. Why, I wonder, can I move through it? Is that a function of the static as well? Let's find out. Science time. Alright. We're going to change this from static to dynamic. And I'm going to hit play. And if this goes as I expect it to, oops. It fell right through the floor. Let's try that again. If that's the case, then my hypothesis is not correct. Okay, my hypothesis was not correct. So, let's set that back to static so it doesn't move. And move it back here. Draw point simple. Layer default material. Maybe none. No. Is trigger. What else is different? I always like to guess before having the tutorial explain it to me, but let's see. What else does he do to make this
too much?
weird?
And we're going to make the end of the level just there, which means we also need to adjust our camera. So let's just say X max. We're going to say, let's say 30, and I'm sure that will go to the end. Let's just have a quick. Yep, cool. Gets to the end, and we can bang into our box club.
Wait, he bangs into his. What on earth? Hope it's not a cheap trick to make the differentiation. I'm right there with you, KMR. But he bumps into his, and I don't. Maybe I'm the crazy one. It's often the case. Maybe this is much ado about nothing. Nope, I can definitely pass through mine. I'm so confused. Is it on a different Z? Am I like passing in front of it? No. Why? You have a 2D box collider. I duplicated the one from... Did I? I'm so confused. Two D box collider, 2D box collider. Go back over here. Maybe I... Go back to the tutorial real quick here. No. Go back.
We also need to adjust our camera. So let's just say X max. We're going to say, let's say 30. I'm sure that will go to the end. Let's just have a quick.
Back it up for a second. Where is? Nope. Too far.
Camera. So let's rigid body.
Okay. He puts rigid body on it.
Rigid body 2D. And we're going to set the rigid body to static, which means it stays in one space. And we're going to adjust, you can see the box collider there. We're going to adjust the size to be about that big. Doesn't matter too much.
So he just sets a collider.
And we're going to make the end of the level just there, which means we also need to adjust our camera. So let's just say X.
He sets his collider. Camera, skybox. I guess this doesn't really matter, but I just have to understand everything.
That big.
He doesn't even put... He doesn't have a sprite renderer. Why on earth would that make a difference? What if I take that off? If I take off is trigger, I would assume that it won't do the debug anymore. And I don't move... What? Okay, that's really confusing to me. So is trigger makes me pass through it. Maybe you have to do two different colliders, like one to be the trigger and one to be the physics. Okay, so with trigger off, I hit the wall but don't get the debug message. With trigger on, which I have to do, not in the play view, I pass through, but I get the debug. Okay, that's very interesting and weird. So how does he do it? I feel like I'm like watching Pete Furman and trying to figure out his magic tricks or something.
In one space, and we're going to adjust, you can see the box collider there. We're going to adjust the size to be about that big. Doesn't matter too much. And we're going to make the end of the level just there, which means we also need to adjust our camera. So let's just say X max. We're going to say, let's say 30. I'm sure that will go to the end. Let's just have a quick. Yep, cool. That's the.
All right, so he did not use his trigger. Are you using the tutorials version of Unity? No, not probably. But that shouldn't matter. So now the question is, he did not use his trigger. But when I... Okay. Turning off... So he did not... Alright. he still gets it. Still gets the debug. So why would I not get the debug? Alright, I'm only trying one more thing, because, like, for sure, this might not be the most exciting thing for y'all to watch, but I am going to try one last look at something here.
Max, we're going to say, let's say 30. I'm sure that will go to the end. Let's just have a quick. Make the end of the level just there.
Definitely doesn't use this trigger. Uses a box collider. Doesn't use a sprite renderer. I guess for no other reason, I'll just try and do that real quick. Sprite renderer is off already. Slider. Box collider 2D. Rigid body 2D. Material none. Simulated. It's all looking right. Box collider, none of that stuff's checked. Well, I am stumped. So I am going to just try something else. We're just going to do a 2D object. How did he do it? Did he just start literally with like a blank new game object? But we've discovered two questions now.
Level.
Alright, so he's got a new game object, he names it end level. So I'll literally do it step by step with him.
And we're going to add a box collider 2D and a rigid body 2D, and we're going to set the rigid body to static, which means it stays in one space, and we're going to adjust. You can see the box collider there. We're going to adjust the size to be about that big.
That's all he does. What on earth? Alright, well, I am running into the exact same problem, which is that I'm not getting the error message. Which to me... That's really sus. We're doing it. It's right there. But mine needs trigger and his doesn't. That's really bizarre. Alright, well, maybe it's a versioning issue. Maybe it's, I have no idea. So I'm going to make a note that I have no idea. And we're going to move on. Alright. In my version trigger status makes it so I pass through endpoint object and trigger debug message, but in tutorial he doesn't use trigger and touches the end, and endpoint object blocks him. He still sees debug, but I don't. WTF. Mate. We'll have to figure that one out another time. Alright. Yep, I think maybe it's a versioning issue, but let's move on, because that was never really a big deal. I just really wanted to understand it, because that's how I roll. I just like to understand stuff.
Doesn't matter too much. And we're going to make the end of the level just there, which means we also need to adjust our camera. So let's just say X max. We're going to say, let's say 30. I'm sure that will go to the end. Let's just have a quick. Yep, cool. Gets to the end and we can bang into our box glider. Alright, fantastic. So let's just go to our end level, and we want to change this to is trigger.
Oh no. He literally just changed it to is trigger, y'all. What the heck?
And we're going to, just for testing purposes, remember, and then we can go back into our script and we can handle that object. So
Wait,
we can
but for why? Why? But for why? Why are you doing that now?
Because this script is on the player, we can deal with collisions. So we can say void on trigger enter 2D. 2D, sorry. And we can call it, I think it needs to be a collision.
Guys, I'm a freaking idiot. It's because his script is... I was like further along in the script than he is, and it probably was just operating differently. Well, live and learn, y'all.
Collider 2D. I'm going to call it trig. And we're going to say...
or wait, did he just... Maybe he just deleted out the debug stuff just there. Because he had that earlier.
And then we can go back into our script.
Where is his debug stuff? Playerscore.cs.
And we can handle that object. So we can say, because this script is on the player, we can deal with collisions. So we can say void on trigger
I'm so confused.
enter 2D. 2D, sorry. And we can call it, I think it needs to be a collision, no, collider 2D. I'm going to call it trig. And we're going to say, we're just going to say debug.log. Touched the end of the level. Okay, let's just give that a test run. I'm just going to change this because we don't need that.
Wait,
I'm going to call it and a box glider. Alright, fantastic.
Collided
So
with
let's
level.
go to our end level, and we want to change this to...
Did he have a
the end.
different debug? Did he have two different steps?
We're
of
just going to
this?
create for the stories.
No,
So,
show me your
you're not-
script.
your personal game.
Stop talking. Where did he have that? Player, he had not player help. Where the heck was he telling it to do a debug up until that point in time? Collided with ground object.
There anymore.
Yeah.
Just the player score is. So, yeah, after 5 seconds, the player dies. Well, he just fell down there, but we'll just test this again. Okay, no, that big. Make the end of the level just there. Let's see. Because it is testing purposes on the player, we can deal with collisions. We can say void.
I don't know if he literally, edited this video out of order or something, because this doesn't make any damn sense. How would he be having the debug messages when he's doing literally scripting for it?
Trigger, enter.
Alright, I feel a little
2D.
vindicated. I think this might have been a tutorial
2D,
issue.
sorry. And we can call it, I think it needs to be a collision. No,
This is
collider
sus.
2D. I'm going to call it trig. And we're going to say, we're just going to say debug.log. Touched the end of the level. Okay, let's just give that a test run. I'm just going to change this because we don't need that right now.
Oh, yeah. That was some editing nonsense. What? Back the F up.
We're just going to say debug.log. Touched the end of the level. Okay, let's just give that a test run. I'm just going to change this because...
Oh, yeah, okay. That's fun. That's cool. Yeah, just, those lines just appeared in the script. Alright, I feel totally vindicated, y'all. Sorry that you had to go on that journey with me, but that's some bullshit. Alright, so, it seems that there was some creative editing in this tutorial that maybe messed me up a little bit. Oh, no, there wasn't. It's that he did it. Oh, he just bumped over to the player movement controller. That's what it is. Okay, so he's got some stuff in player score and he's got some stuff in player movement controller. Okay. I see you now. Let's get player movement controller open here. Maybe I did this work in there and didn't know that I did it. Alright, let's take a look. So back to our player movement controller. Okay, so this stuff that he was doing on Collision 2D, there we go. Player has collided with collider name, which I have commented out. Alright, so let's try this again. I'm going to go here. This is a mess, y'all. Alright. Let's get you over here. Player store. Alright, now let's make sure that we just, which script were we supposed to be in this whole time? So,
back to 120.
this is player score. Alright, still in player score.
So we can say, because this script is on the player, we can deal with collisions. We can say void on trigger enter 2D. 2D, sorry. And we can call it, I think it needs to be a collision, no, collider 2D. I'm going to call it trig. And we're going to say, we're just going to say debug.log. Touched the end of the level. Okay, let's just give that a test run. I'm just going to change this because we don't need it.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's real cute. It looks like he just straight up moved all of this stuff and changed the way that it worked over in the player movement controller and just didn't say anything. Okay. Just feeling slightly more vindicated here. Nope, this is different. This is player collided with collider name. So this is what we were using to say ground earlier. All right. I'm just going to get caught up with this real quick here. If let me swap these so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm back over in the player movement controller now, which is a different script that we have been put back into with little warning. Game objects dot tag equals ground. So we're going to have to set a custom tag for that. All right. So if the collider of a game object is tagged as ground, we are going to say is grounded is true, and we're going to have a debug message that says that we have collided with the name of the collider. Get rid of that. And it looks like I need a close brace here. No issues found. Well, that's nice. Let's see what happens. I'm going to want to see the console for this here. Up. Why can't I jump? Okay, I'm colliding with a game object. Ground 3. I'm also colliding with the okay, so I'm colliding with my end game object here. I think I have an issue with my tagging. So let's go here, there, ground 3, untagged. This needs to be tagged, add tag. All right, great. Okay, so what we did there was it seems like we're starting to do a bit more differentiation in our colliders, which is good. And I'm thinking maybe this might help us with our enemies bouncing off themselves and stuff like that. But essentially now what's happening is we're getting a debug message every time I collide with a game object, and it's returning the name of that game object. So when I jump and hit the ground, you'll see that I have the name of the object, so we're jumping between ground 3 and ground 2. If you look at ground 2, back in the scene view, it's ground 2, that's ground 3, right? So we're bouncing back and forth between those, and it's giving me a debug message when we do that. And also, even though it is invisible, we also have the ending game object that we created, and if I collide with that, you should see it say collided with game object, which we did. So cool. I think we're getting caught up with our tutorials creative editing, and probably need to get better at just watching a few more seconds ahead as opposed to trying to debug every situation in case this happens again. So let's see what else they've got for me.
Yeah, right now. I just commented out that debug.
I'm also a little perplexed. This was not tagged as ground. So I'm interested as to why it allowed me to have is grounded. I'll go back into scene view and remove untagged. I can only get one jump. Interesting. Okay, so ground. I can jump infinitely here, but I'll bet if I go to this one, I only get one jump. Yep, alright. That's why you gotta make these changes on the prefab, not individual object. So the ground, we're going to call it. I'm going to save that prefab. Back to the game, and hopefully dang it. I'm gonna have to do this janky manually because I was not good about making sure these are all prefab. I need all of these. Oh, maybe you can do it here. Sweet. Cool. Just make it all kill zone. Ground. Ground. Alright, now I should be able to jump as much as I want to, right? Alright, cool. Nope, it didn't work. Why not? You did not get marked as ground. You did not get marked as ground. I thought I had all of you marked as ground. Does that not work? Oh, I guess it doesn't work. And I mass select you, and there we go. You are all ground. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Yay! I'm jumping back. Alright, good deal. Die. Cool. Alright, so that was a bit of a detour, but that's what happens when your tutorial goes sideways on you. But we figured it out. So the issue that happened was it looked like he started adding the script for detecting, colliding, and reaching the end of the game in the score script, and then kind of just changed over to doing it in the player movement script. And we've been kind of having to play catch up with that. Now what we've done, and I guess I should make some notes of this so we don't forget, is alright, we've now tagged ground objects with a special tag called ground, such that when Simba touches a collider, associated with tag object. He is grounded, allowing jumping. Okay. Don't think we need enemy movement script anymore, so close that. Okay, so we're back. This is player score. Touch the end. Be really interested to see when he's done with this, if that is just gone. So we see that script. But back to player movement. What the heck? There you are. Why is it doing that? I don't want players. There you are. Hello. Okay. Okay, so we've done this custom tag. Good deal. Let's see what's next.
Okay, let's give it a go. Player jumps and bang, touch the end of the level. So we know that when a player touches this now, it's what?
So end of the level is now got a trigger on it. I can't.
Every time I touch it, the value goes up here. So we know that the player is touching the end of the level.
He passes through it, which, look at that. There wasn't even an issue. It was all just, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, we can't do the tutorial sound without sharing the application instead of the screen. And I think you've seen how much trouble I have with the streaming technology as it is, Catherine. So we'll do the best we can. But we determined that all of that was much ado about nothing. Our our tutorial leader decided to very creatively edit his video to my max confusion. But we figured it out, and we may have noticed that when he had on trigger checked in this edit, he did pass through the collider. He did not stop, and so that explains why that happened. So I can go back to my WTF line, and I can take that out because it wasn't true at all. All right, so onward we go.
So now what we need to do is code in the logic of what happens when the player touches the end of a level. So get rid of these two scripts. Don't do it right now. Okay, so we don't need this.
He did have it in the score, and now he's just deleting it out.
Give it if you want. But I can say...
I have no idea. Anyway, I think it's pretty clear he made a mistake there. All right, so let's go back to player score and remove this debug message. That did not seem to be a thing. And we are now setting a condition for what happens when we trigger that end of the level.
I'm going to say count score. Void count score. And then in void count score, we're going to take the time left, and we're going to add that to player score. So to do that, we can just say player score equals player score plus, and we can put it in brackets, time left, time left times 10, I'm pretty sure, it's 10, and then we can say debug.log the score.
All right, pausing that right there. What he's doing, he is saying, if we collide with that, I'm really curious about this trig that he's got written here. But yeah, so if we collide with that end of level trigger, it's going to fire the count score, and that's going to basically add, based on how much time we have left, to our score. So void count score has been created. So let's just go ahead and finish putting in the logic for that. So we're going to get 10 points for each second we have left. And we're going to have a little debug print out for us our score. All right, let's see what happens. I'm skeptical.
Pretty sure that's right. Although I didn't do very well at maths in school. But yep. Go, of course, it's a problem. So it's freaking out because we're trying to change a float to an integer, so we can just quickly
So it's freaking out because we're trying to change a float to an integer.
turn it into an integer, which is a bit sloppy, but it's fine. So the player score is an integer, and we're trying to change that so we can say, I think we can say int, which casts it.
Huh. Plus int. I think we're just doing some hacky shit. I don't know what that did.
To change that so we can say, I think we can say int, which casts it. Okay, cool, so there's no errors there, and yeah, so I'll just drag this guy over so it's easier. Cool. So, yep, time left is 1191, which is what we want. So if we just, in fact, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say void update, I'm going to say debug.log. I'm going to say time left. Cool, so we can see it's 118, 117, 116, and so when I touch the end, it should times that by 10, so I'm just going to get it under 100. That game is so good. Alright, 99, alright, cool, so now, cool, now pause it, we're going to scroll up until we see 970, there we go, which was this score here.
Let's see about that. So alright, I'm colliding with the game object. It's not giving me the score the way it's supposed to. I wonder if our issue with the trigger is coming in again here. Does trigger, let's turn that on. All right, so that is working. When I pass through the game object, it's giving me a score. It should be multiplying time left by 10, but it doesn't look like that's what it's doing, because for one, my score is going up, even though ostensibly I should have less time with each passing moment. If I go to the player game object in the scene view, I think that's where, yeah, you can see time is running down. So when I hit, can I do that? I want to see him at the same time. All right, we've got to play. I want the player selected. Okay, so we can see time is moving down. Let's not do that. Okay. All right, we can see that the player's time is moving down. But yeah, that calculation's not working. It should be time left times 10. And well, I guess it is working, because it's stacking on top of itself. It's not rewriting itself every time. So that kind of makes sense. Okay, let's go back to the player on screen. So this should add roughly 1,000 points. Like 900-ish points. How does it do that? Oh, it reloads the scene every time. That's why. Okay. There it is. Yeah, so it's adding about 1,000 points each time I pass through the end. So that's working. Okay. So let's pause that. I am still so perplexed as to how it knows to do this only specifically with this one game object. And I'm guessing it's because it's the only game object with isTrigger activated. So I'm going to do a quick experiment. And I'm going to let's do this. I'm going to set this guy, ground 3, our good friend ground 3. Let's set him to isTrigger. That's ground 2. Wait. Ground 2 isTrigger. Yep. Okay. This feels like that episode of Adventure Time with the Hall of Uracid. It's ground 2, ground 2, ground 2, ground 2. Ground 2, pause. Alright, ground 2. Let's set you to isTrigger. And if this works, we should see player score go up when I pass through. Dang it. This does feel like Adventure Time. Let's make this a little easier on myself. All right. Which ground are we looking at? You are ground 12. I'm going to set ground 12 to isTrigger. I'm expecting two things to happen. One is I'm expecting that it should no longer support me, like I should fall through it. And two, I'm expecting that it's going to return a high score And it did. All right. We solved it. We figured it out. So, Waldo, y'all, my cat is in my bed. I don't know how I feel about it. On the one hand, I love him because he's so cuddly. On the other hand, I like having hair-free zones in my house. And it's just like, he sheds so much. Sweet boy. Sweet, sweet boy. Okay, so, good. We figured it out. All right. Get out of here. Make this not a trigger anymore. I'm feeling a little triggered right now on account of this tutorial shenanigans. I'll do my deep relaxation breath. I'm going to drink some water. Water break. Self-care virtual pet, y'all. You gotta drink your water. Do your self-care. Do your stretches and your breathing and stuff. I say this mostly for myself because I don't practice what I preach as much as I should. But okay, so this is good. It's good and it's not good. It's good, but it's lazy. It's good because what we've determined is that we definitely have this is trigger. That is what is causing the script to run that's giving us the high score. I'm just thinking that we probably want to be able to use triggers for like more things than that. And so it's kind of just like, I don't know, everything about this just feels a little lazy. But okay, good deal. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this game object. And I'm going to bring back East End, which is a trigger. And if I pass through that, we should see the high score get calculated. I did. Got it. Your score is a 1085 Unity game object collided with so interesting to me that it also wouldn't return like East End or East End there. But okay, good deal. We did it. Let's get back to it.
So there we go. As soon as we touched it, times the score that we had, which is 97.06, it turned into an integer because we used this here, which just casts this float into this integer. We just basically, if we put that there, I put double, and it would change it to a double, or any other numerical. But we just need an integer for this now because this is an integer. So we change it to an integer, and it does its best to guess what integer value it is in, and it says 970, and that's exactly what we want. Awesome, so that works. Now all we need to do is have it display on the screen. Okay, so let us do that. Okay, so to do that...
Alright, so the next step here is to actually have some UI. So to have this, instead of doing everything through these debug logs to tell us what your score is, but to actually have it print out on screen. So that's cool. Before we move too much farther, I just want to do a little documentation because this has been such a crazy... attempt at understanding this person bouncing around in different versions and stuff like that. So we learned that the score printing is happening because East End is the only game object, or collider, I guess I would say, is the only game object with a collider that is designated as a trigger. Okay, good deal.
Because we're in prototype, everything looks ugly stage. We're not going to worry about too much about what it looks like, but we're just going to aim for functionality at this stage. So, best way to do that, game object, UI, and we're going to do text.
Okay, so we're creating a new game object called, it's a UI game object, and we're going to make it a text object. So if I go to my hierarchy, I'm going to right click, new UI text.
Wait for my slow 2011 MacBook Pro to catch up. And then we're going to copy this, and we're just going to call one time left, and we're going to call one score.
All right, so we're duplicating that, and we're going to rename them as time left and score. So let's do that. You'll also notice that when I created this text object, it created something called a canvas. Rename time left. I'm going to duplicate that and call it score. Of course, I did all that not in the scene view, so none of it stuck. Don't do that, y'all. UI text. This is time left. This is score.
Cool, and first thing is first, let's change the color to be white. Let's click here and you can adjust where it actually sits, and I want it to sit on the top left hand corner, so I click this option. It might be different on the Windows, but
all right, so if you are following along here, why is it? It's like floating in space somewhere. Okay, there we go. Just really zoomed out. Why are they so massive? Holy crap. Is that how it should be? Whoa. Well, in any case, we're going to change these. First thing we're going to do is we're going to change the way that it's anchored. So we go to this little widget in the rect transform. We're going to anchor the text to the top left. And we are going to change the color of the text. So we do that here. So you can now see we have two. They're sitting right on top of each other. Over here, you can see we've got that and that.
it says here Shift and Alt. Shift and then pivot it to top left hand corner. And it might be different on the Windows, but it says here Shift and Alt. Shift and then pivot it to top left hand corner, and then
I think it's telling me I need to hold Shift and Alt when I was doing those selections. So
and
let's go back to these. Yeah, anchor presets. Shift also set pivot. Alt also set position. So I don't actually know what any of that means, but I'm going to do it. Ah, I see. So that now brought it up here, which is, I think, better. We'll obviously change the position soon, but I'm really glad that I caught that little detail because I would have been very confused. Okay.
also let us just zoom in. I'm going to make this fairly bigger. I'm going to say 300 by 300. Let's say 150. Actually, I'm going to make this 500 wide, 150 tall, and this one 500 wide, 150 tall, and we're just going to. This one is going to be score.
All right, so we're just setting the transform, just setting the dimensions here. So set both of them to be 500 by 150, and we're going to change the actual text here to say time, and this one to say score.
Score. I'm just going to leave it like that for now.
It's important to put, I gotta put a little space after, because if I don't, then the number is going to sit right up on it rather than after a space. So, little rookie mistake on my part there. I did it again.
And this one, 500 wide, 150 tall, and we're just going to, this one is going to be score. Score. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. And time left, you guess it, time left. And is there anything else we need to do? Just, let's change this to, say, what's a good size font? 30. Yeah. And 30. And let's have the score just a little bit lower. So let's have it negative 50. Ugh, that's horrible, isn't it? Let's just see that full screen.
Okay, so we're just getting our stuff in place. You decided to have the score a little lower than the time, and set the size of the font to 30. Let's see how this looks in the game view. Okay, I don't like that. I want the score to be a little higher than that. Let's say like, like that better.
Oh, why has it changed? Sorry, my thing has changed for some reason. I think it's because I updated Unity to 5.6.1. That's annoying. Just adjust things to how you like them, but I think it's 30. And I'm actually going to... Yeah, good enough. Does the job for now. And time left. Obviously, too, you can change your font here, and you can change all these settings, so it doesn't look like such like hot ass. Although hot ass is a good thing. Sorry, I think I'm going to become a dad soon because my jokes are getting pretty bad. Have a bit of a buffer.
Just realized I'm wearing my headphones for like an hour and a half for absolutely no reason.
Cool. Let's press play, see what it looks like. Happy days. Alright, so then we can move over to...
Alright, let's see what we got going on. We're actually making some progress here, y'all. Oh, happy day. Would you look at that? We got some UI labels, and in this next section, we're going to be piping in some, see, if I touch a wall, the collider says I'm grounded and I can't jump again. Gotta fix that. And I'm looking forward to learning. I don't know how it works with a box collider. Like, how do I make it pay attention to the top of the box different than the side of the box? I gotta know. I gotta know these things. Looking forward to knowing, because I don't like janky jump stuff. The whole point of this experiment was to get me to a place where I could start prototyping a character movement controller. Oh, it looks like our pipes aren't even fitted with that nice grounded status, so I just learned something new there. Where are my pipes? I think that's it. Any other pipes hanging out? They are fitted with the grounded status. What? This one? Ah, I found the one. Sneaky, sneaky soy sauce. All right, so back to this. We've got score. I wanted to kind of get those a little further off the edge. Oh, that looks real nice. Okay, so next. What we got next?
To the score, player score, and we need to add a new namespace saying using Unity engine .ui.
Okay, so we're adding a new namespace to the very top of the code, just telling Unity to use all of the UI related stuff in the engine.
Pretty sure that's right. And that means we can access the UI elements. So then we need to create a few variables. We can say public UI. I'm just going to say game object, actually. Game object. And we're going to call this time left. Public game object player. Score. And
so interestingly, it looks like he's creating some new public variables. And even though they have the same names as stuff that is defined later here, so like we have time left in the update function and we have player score in the count score function, but it looks like he wants to create some public variables so that we can modify what's being populated in the UI at any time.
And obviously this is going to work in both UI kind of variables the same thing.
That's helpful. Let's not name them the exact same thing.
In the same scene, you silly man. And that is good. So we've got these two public game objects and we want to access them. So we can say, I'm pretty sure if I go back into Unity, click on the player, wait for my 2011 upload to catch up, and then I can drag time left into time left UI and score. Click back on player. Click on score.
Okay. Interesting. So what's happening here is we are dragging UI game objects into the player score script that has been assigned to the player? Yeah, looks like it. Okay, so the logic of the player score script is being applied to the player game object, taking into account the time that the UI game objects that we are dragging into. That's really interesting. Okay, so is that because we're... let me see. Go back to the script here. Public game object. Yeah, so it's actually not... Yeah, it's not like it's a public int or a public float. It's what object. And so, yeah, we can just do that. Interesting. All right.
Public game objects, and we want to access.
So let's go ahead and add that to our script. So this is in the player score. Player score logic here. So we're defining two new variables. Public game object time left UI and public game object player score UI. Saving that, going back to our scene, and going to the player object, going to player score script, seeing that we have two empty public variables here, and dragging time left into time left UI and score into player score UI. Let's go. We'll do my homework to catch up. Good to see you, KMR. Thanks for your questions. Appreciate it. Thanks for struggle busing through some tutorial silliness. But it looks like by the end of the day today, which is happening very soon, we're going to have some populated UI elements happening on screen. So that's pretty cool.
we can say, I'm pretty sure if I go back into Unity, click on the player, wait for my to catch up, and then I can drag time left into time left UI and score. Click back on player, click on score, and click on player score UI. If you ever want to lock the view here, click the lock button here, and that means that whatever you click on won't change. And that's really useful for drag and dropping. Cool. Okay, so let's do a little bit of coding. So debug long time left we don't need anymore, but what we can say is just under time minus equals time double time, we can say time left UI dot game object dot get component, and then we can say text dot text equals time left plus time left. This works. I'm going to be cheering because I'm not actually sure if it's going to work.
Wow, that is a heck of a string. I'm going to copy all that, see if I can follow along with everything that was just stated there.
Cool. Let's just have a look at that, see if it works.
Okay, so we are under player score now and going to the update function. So every frame, time is going to tick down, and that's going to update time left that displays in the UI. So time left UI, that's the object up there, dot game object dot get component. The component we are getting from the game object, which I guess is the player. This is so this has been assigned to the player. Then we're going to get the component from the player. All right, I'm trying to really follow along with this. Public game object time left UI. Time left UI dot game object dot get component. So we're getting the text. Not sure if I'm quite understanding this, but I might have to be okay with not understanding it. Text. No, not text alignment. Just one text. Get component text. Oh, I see. Hang on. Okay, so I'm retrieving from the game object a certain value from a component. And that might be the alignment, it might be the anchor, but I'm just going for the text itself, which doesn't actually seem to be a command that it's giving me. So that's a little interesting. I wonder if it's not going to work, to be honest. Dot text. I think he made a mistake. Time left UI dot game objects dot get component text dot text equals. All right, and now we are going to every frame update time left UI dot game objects with this. So we're going to overwrite the text that's currently in there that just says time left with this, which is going to be dynamically how much time is actually left. I'm perturbed about the fact that there doesn't actually seem to be a command called text, even though it seems to be working on his. The typer namespace text could not be found. Well, I'm probably going to get an error. It's right there. If it works for him, I'm going to be very annoyed.
Works.
It works.
Cool. So it's counting down.
That's not great.
Because I'm not actually sure if it's going to work.
Oh, you want to know why? It's because I didn't add up at the top using UnityEngine.ui. I forgot that step. So that is clearly a function from the .ui, and that's why it's not working. So let's fix that. Using UnityEngine.ui. And now it did it. All right, interesting. And interestingly, it seemed to just be the text piece that was what was missing. So I'm really still, my brain is still wrapping itself around how the logic of this works. But what I think is happening is we are updating time left UI. And we're doing that by going to the game object, which I'm assuming is the player because that is what the script has been assigned to, getting a component from the player. So we go player, 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 player. Component of the player being player score or get component. We're getting a text component from the player, which is time left UI. Game object, get component, text, and then updating it with this text. So I don't actually know if that's true. I don't know if this game object is the one that I think it is, but I'm hoping I'm understanding that correctly. Okay, well this should work now. So let's run it and see. And it sure does. So you can see in the top left, we've got our time running down. It's a float, so we probably could do the little thing that he did last time, where if we were to go to here, how did he do that before? Player score plus int. Or if that would do it. It didn't work. I didn't really understand it when he did it the first time, so. Player score plus int time left times 10. I thought that would work. Maybe you do it here. No, I'll bet it's probably because it's a. Let me try this. Oh, look at that. I was able to do that. Look at me applying new knowledge in a way I didn't know before. So yeah, so apparently if you put a parentheses and int in front of something that's normally a float, you can just get it to come out as an int. So that's cool. All right, so let's just repeat that, but do it for our score. That's going to happen down here instead of having this debug. Time left, let's say player score UI. Get rid of the int this time. Change this to score. Change this to, what's it called? Player score. That should do it. So if I get to the end of the level here, hey Larry, if I get to the end of the level here, we should see the score populate at the top. Moment of truth. Did it. Awesome. Cool. Well, that should be a good little stopping point there. So, okay, that was a little bit of a labor. Turns out when your tutorial decides to, edit itself and not tell you, and that can cause some gentle confusion. But we learned some good stuff today. We learned how basically how triggers work. We got all of our grounds properly tagged, so we got some tagging happening now. We got UI happening, so we've got score running down. We learned how to overwrite floats with ints to make them prettier. What else did we learn? We talked a little bit about 2D physics and all that good stuff. Was that going to reset the timer every time? Sure does. Look at that. Good deal. So yeah, pretty good stopping point. So I'm going to be a good steward of making sure that we can get up and moving really fast next time by documenting what we did. So we got some UI elements up on. We needed to add the unity.ui namespace. We learned that adding a int in front of a float can help it return a different value, an int value for UI purposes. And we piped variables into the text for the UI, and they are updating correctly. Put a point of confusion in. I'm going to copy this line of code so that maybe I can research it a bit myself later. Riding on Goombas. Bonk. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted this one. Am I understanding the logic right? I would think this means update the text of the player score UI component set to the game of the game object associated with this script, which is the player. With score plus player score. Yeah, I'd like to just confirm that I know that that's what's happening from a logic standpoint. But cool. All right. Other questions to play with. How does ignore raycast work? We're confused about the fact that the Goombas will bounce off walls in Simba, but not each other. So it's like, are they ignoring only the? Yeah, it's weird because it's like you would think if they're ignoring their own. I'm just gonna have to look up ignore raycast and see how that works. Is it only ignoring for themselves? And if so, why don't they bounce off the other Goombas? All right, create a time system. Cool. All right, productive stream. And we didn't spend like 90% of it fighting with cameras and stuff, so that's pretty cool. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for tuning in, and have a good day, and drink water, and play with your Amarus. And if you enjoyed this, like buy a copy for someone. Go Keys for Those in Need. I think last time I checked, I think there's like a good 115 or so people out there. We've been really good about keeping that log down. It's been really impressive to see the generosity of people helping get keys to people. So if you enjoyed the stream today and you want to send us a tip, best way to do that is just buy a copy of the game for someone and pay it forward or something. But anyway, y'all be good and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.